Welcome in, everybody. You are listening to WLFC 88.3, and this is your host, Matthew Miller Search, here with another hour of Gut Check Time. We're going to talk a little NBA free agency here, some MLB contenders and pretenders, since we're at the halfway point of the season with the All-Star break coming up very, very soon, less than 2 weeks away. And then also, we've gone through the AFC, who I think is going to win the division, the over-unders. We're going to start with an NFC division, I believe the best division in the NFC. But first off, let's kick off with NBA free agency. Some of the big signings that have happened so far. The Bulls re-signed Zach LaVine to a 5-year deal, which is surprising to me. I thought he was going to leave somewhere else, to be honest with you. I knew they were going to offer it to him. I just assumed he would leave. They also signed Goran Dragic and Andre Drummond, so they kind of reload, get a little bit better, I would say, and they're ready to challenge for the Eastern Conference, possibly. I don't think so, but at least they're making moves to push that way, and I like that. We'll see what happens with Lonzo Ball if he re-signs with them. I would assume not. He has knee issues, and as soon as you hear that, you probably don't want to put any money into that because I really don't see a future there if that's the case. Next up, a little hometown news. The Cavaliers re-signed Darius Garland. He agreed to the 5-year extension, rookie extension, max. And they also re-signed Ricky Rubio. And I like both of those moves. The problem is I believe Colin Sexton is now gone. I don't think Colin Sexton comes back. There's been rumors of him in the Mavericks. I thought his value would be much higher than it is. Most people out there are saying $10 to $12 million, which is crazy when someone like Lou Dort from the Oklahoma City Thunder is getting $18 million a year. I think Colin Sexton is a better overall player than Lou Dort, and you're hearing $10 to $12 million for him. So I don't think he comes back to the Cavs unless it's a 1-year, $12 to $15 million deal where it's like prove it, but I just don't see a need for him at this point. The Heat re-signed Victor Oladipo. This one kind of surprised me. I really thought he was going to be gone. This was more of a signing a couple years back to where it kind of worked out for both teams. You get a good player in Victor Oladipo who's coming off a really bad knee injury, and you basically get to he gets to rebuild his brand and reputation along with helping the Miami Heat off the bench. And he really didn't do that, to be honest with you. He's not looked at as what he once was. A couple years back, he looked at him as a really good player, a 20-plus points per game score on a playoff team and an all-star. He's just not that anymore. So they were able to re-sign him. The Bucks keep their team together, which is very important to me. I think the Milwaukee Bucks were the best team in the NBA last year. I think they were going to win the championship if Chris Middleton does not suffer that torn meniscus. And they keep everyone together on this team. And that includes signing Bobby Portis. They even add Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles, a fantastic player for his career, was hurt all of last year. He is known for playing with the Utah Jazz. He's a good shooter, good three-point shooter. He can create off the dribble a little bit, and he's an average defender. So I think that helps out a lot for the Milwaukee Bucks, especially in a time when if Giannis were to sit, I think he can create offense from the Milwaukee Bucks. So that's a good signing for them. Bradley Beal re-signs with the Wizards. This was thought to be basically done deal about halfway through the season. Everyone in the NBA had predicted that he would opt out of his contract and sign the gigantic max contract that's going to pay him $50+ million a year. I think it's a bad move for the Wizards, but they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, but still a bad move. For the simple fact is you're nowhere close to contending. You're not a playoff team, and you're paying someone $50 million to put up good but not great numbers. I think the days of Bradley Beal leading the league in scoring, which he did 1 year, are over. I don't think he'll ever be that again, but I think he could have been a really good number 2 piece for someone on a championship team. And with this contract, I believe that avenue no longer exists. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's going to be able to do that because I don't think a team is going to trade away assets for that salary cap. That's way too much for someone who's your number 2. That's number 1 money, and Bradley Beal is not a number 1. He never really has been. He's a number 1 on a 7th or 8th seed, which is pointless to me unless you're a number 1 on a top 4 seed. You don't deserve that type of money, and he's not that guy, and he's getting paid like one of those guys, and he's really a number 2 at this point in his career. The 76ers signed some familiar faces for James Harden, he opted out of his 1-year contract, but he's looking for a longer-term deal for the 76ers. My guess is they do re-sign him. I think they'll re-sign him. He left $47 million on the table. My guess is he'll make 3 years, 120. I don't see the 76ers paying him more than that. I think it'd be ludicrous to do so if they do that. But they signed some familiar faces who know how to play with them in P.J. Tucker and Daniel House. Daniel House played with the Rockets, so did P.J. Tucker. They played together and they played along James Harden. They know how to play with them. They know that, guess what? If you stand on the wing, such as Daniel House, just practice those corner or those wing threes, and PJ Tucker practice the corner threes and be a tenacious defender. He's not a great defender anymore, but he's a tenacious defender. And then this is probably the biggest news so far of the offseason, other than Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Well, Kevin Durant actually saying he wants to be traded. We'll see how that goes. But the biggest news that has actually happened is Rudy Gobert getting traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, it's not the fact that Rudy Gobert got traded. It's what he got traded for. He got traded for 4 first-round picks between 2023 and 2029 and 4 players, including rookie Walker Kessler out of Auburn, Patrick Beverly, Malik Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt. Now, none of those players are great. Obviously, we don't know what Walker Kessler's ceiling is. All the other 3 guys are rotational players. They're good, solid players. Like, if you're a championship team, they're going to be in your top 9 of your rotation. And really, once you get to the playoffs, that gets whittled down to 7. But Patrick Beverly and even Malik Beasley at this point could probably get in that mix for the Utah Jazz if they make the playoffs. And it just reset the market, guys. That's my biggest issue with this trade. Rudy Gobert is not worth this. He's just not. He's not worth 4 first-round picks. He's not worth 4 players. I thought max you would get 2 first-round picks for him and 1 or 2 players. I mean, Kawhi Leonard wasn't traded for this much, guys. The only person that was traded for this much, and that was because they had to do it because Paul George was traded for a lot, and he was traded for a lot because Kawhi Leonard was going to sign with the Clippers if Paul George was there. And Sam Presti of the Oklahoma City Thunder, the GM for the Oklahoma City Thunder, knew that and said, guess what? I want all your picks, and I want Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is fantastic for the Clippers, and he's been fantastic for the Thunder, a really good young player. And that's what they got. And they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. The Minnesota Timberwolves were not stuck between a rock and a hard place here. They chose to make this trade. There was no one that joined Rudy Gobert like there was with Paul George, with Kawhi Leonard coming to the Clippers as well. It's basically you're getting those 2 players for all those picks and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which I understand. You're just getting Rudy Gobert here. And Rudy Gobert is a fantastic defender. He's been a Defensive Player of the Year multiple times. But the thing is, in the playoffs, the defense for those Utah Jazz teams got worse. What does that tell you about Rudy Gobert? Great regular season player, not very good in the postseason. And now you pair him together with Karl-Anthony Towns, and you get 2 of the 3 highest centers payroll-wise in the league, and you're getting very little defense. You're getting, in the case with Karl-Anthony Towns, very boneheaded decision-making. Him and Jaren Jackson Jr. were having a stupidity contest last year with fouling when they played each other with the Grizzlies and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then all what's going to happen now is you're going to get these guys on an island, one-on-one, and teams are going to expose them. I really don't understand this. And the problem here, too, is you lock in your core. Your core going forward is going to be Rudy Gobert, Karl-Anthony Towns, and I love Anthony Edwards, who's not just turned, I believe, 21 or 22. He's very young. Fantastic player. In my opinion, is going to be a top 10 player in this league. Could be higher. But you lock those 3 guys in. And I think this team had a chance to be special. If you put someone else around a Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, someone like a Scotty Barnes, a big wing defender and a decent shooter, I think this team has a chance to be special. I mean, imagine if they traded for Kevin Durant and said, I don't think they were going to be able to. They don't have the assets player-wise. But that would have been like a perfect and seamless fit. Rudy Gobert does not fit on this team. I didn't understand the trade. I don't think it's going to work out. I think you're at best going to be a fifth or fourth seed, and the best you'll ever be is a second-round exit. You're never going to make a Western Conference Finals with this team. You're just not. Rudy Gobert is not built for the postseason. I still question Karl-Anthony Towns. Anthony Edwards is the 100% centerpiece of this team, and they should have built around him with some wing defenders and shooters, and instead you give him a big that's not great on offense and good – and he's great on defense in the regular season. He's average in the postseason, and it's only going to get worse as he gets older. He's 30 years old. At the end of his contract, he's going to be getting paid over $50 million for a guy that can't score on the offensive side of the ball. So that makes no sense to me. But it's the Minnesota Timberwolves, and what they've done, even now with new ownership, including Alex Rodriguez as a minority owner, they just continue to make stupid decisions year after year after year. They haven't had, minus that 1 year back in the early 2000s with Stephon Marbury and Kevin Garnett making the Western Conference Finals, this team has done nothing. So there's really not much to say here other than I think they just wasted Anthony Edwards' best years with a guy in Karl-Anthony Towns that is kind of awkward and weird and doesn't strike me as someone that has killer instinct, and then Rudy Gobert, who's just a liability in the postseason. Next, we'll move on to the New York Knicks and talk about doing Knicks things. The Knicks continue to do Knicks things. What I mean by that is either not making sense, signing someone past their prime, or just all around stupid things in general. And the Knicks hit 2 out of the 3 here. They signed Jalen Brunson, who is a good but not great player. He's not even a top 15 player at his position. He's a point guard, played for the Dallas Mavericks last year, played pretty well. He very well in the postseason, pretty well in the regular season, and he was going to get paid regardless. But 4 years, $104 million, which is $26 million a year, is ridiculous. I put his max at $22 million is what the most I would have paid him. So they overpaid in this case. And you paid for a guy, like I said, that's not even his top 5 or 15 out of his position. And on top of this, you're going to lose a second-round pick now because of tampering. The Knicks, I mean, this isn't even like debatable that they tampered here, guys. There was week or 2 weeks back, there were reports of him signing with the Knicks, or stories of, yeah, they already have a deal lined up. And the first day of free agency, the first legal day, he signed there. And Rick Brunson, his father, who played in the NBA a long time ago, got hired on by the Knicks. These guys, Jalen Brunson's agent, someone who works for the Knicks, and then Rick Brunson, before he took the job with the Knicks, were all sitting courtside at a Dallas Mavericks playoff game, first or second row. Like, I mean, this is pretty obvious tampering, and you're tampering for a guy that's not even that good. Like, if this is a Kyrie Irving, if Kyrie Irving has his head on straight, a LeBron James, Kevin Durant, that's worth a second-round pick. Jalen Brunson is not worth $26 million a year plus a second-round pick to tamper with. It's the Knicks being the Knicks. It's ridiculous how this franchise just can't stop falling flat on their face. I mean, this is the best franchise in New York, and you've gotten outclassed in free agency multiple times by the Brooklyn Nets. It doesn't make any sense. I wish this team was run properly. When the Knicks are good in the NBA is better, but I don't see this team being run properly anytime soon. I'm hoping it does. I think it would take James Dolan, the owner of the Knicks, to sell the team. I don't see that happening unless he was forced to sell, and that would have been years back when basically him and Charles Oakley gotten a beef in the Garden and then outside of the Garden over social media about him getting thrown out. So if that wasn't going to happen then, James Dolan's not going to sell. This franchise is going to be a laughingstock continuously. Call me when they're good again, and I don't know when that'll be. After this commercial break, we're going to talk about some Major League Baseball contenders and pretenders. Obviously, leading that list, the best team in Major League Baseball, the Yankees. But we'll listen to a couple songs here for a commercial break, and then we'll come back and talk about that.
We said Paris all spring, made names for the offspring, colors for the vows. Where are you right now? We made plans for all things, but our dreams were just dreams. Dreams don't work sometimes. It stays on my mind. I had dreams of making love from scratch. You had tendencies and mine could match, and I'd do anything to bring that back. But time don't go and rewind, no. Always stay paid with good intentions, leave the bad days. Well, wait, get the money with the OJ. Why can't we just go back to the old days like we used to be? Baby, it's 4 a.m. in East Detroit, and I do anything to hear your voice, oh boy. And you're so lonely when your heart is broken. I was hoping we could talk it out. Maybe we could talk it out. 4 a.m. I'm fine, but you've been on my mind. I can't lie, can't be the first to call. My pride won't let me fall, not this time. Time knows everything but this wound. Baby, I'm so tired of sleeping in the guest room, wondering what you're doing in the next room. And make your next move, your best move. Baby, it's 4 a.m. in East Detroit, I'd do anything to hear your voice, oh boy. It gets so lonely when your heart is broken. I was hoping we could talk it out. Maybe we could talk it out.
So it's a charming disposition, you could call it nihilistic. And I thought that I would miss it while still wishing that I didn't. But I wish that I could give it half as well as I can take it. Still I'm learning how to fake it, and I fake it, but I can't fake the fact that I would fly you to New York just to watch you walk across a crowded room. But I don't believe in nothing, least of all my own intentions. Still I wish the best for you. For you, for you, for you. Cool party, it's like the best party. Like I wish that I had something to wear, but every word that I said was out of my head, out of my head, out of my head. What I meant instead was, how can I give you what you asked me for if I don't wanna take care of myself no more, no more, no more of that again. So easy fan, it's ironic as they say I still got it as I'm pale-faced and prodding, still performing with my pain arranged in front. And I am not fine anymore than I am on time, and I'm late again for something that I can't ignore. Like I can't ignore that I would fly you to New York just to watch you walk across a crowded room. And I don't believe in nothing, just not most things, just not lately. I suppose I wanted to. Did you? Did you? Did you? Cool party. think that I'm gonna do, which is just flip out. Flip out. Party's over.
That was Cool Party by My Blum, and this is WLFC 88.3, and I am your host, Matthew Miller Search, and this is Gut Check Time. Now, before I left you, I was talking about the pretenders and contenders for Major League Baseball World Series. We're at the halfway point. The All-Star break is coming up in about a week, and I think there's a lot of teams this year, and especially with the new format of an extra wild card team where you have your 3 division winners and then 3 wild card teams with the top 2 division winners getting a bye, the worst division winner playing the worst wild card team, and then the 2 wild card teams playing each other. It makes it very interesting. Now, baseball is a game of a lot of statistics and numbers. A lot of you may not know these, and that's fine. I'm going to run through what I mean, what these mean to baseball and why they're important. Okay, on-base percentage, which we're going to talk about a little bit. It's the amount of times or percentage of times you get on base per your plate appearances. OPS is your slug percentage and on-base percentage combined. And if you don't know what slug percentage is the total number of bases or total percentage of times or bases you reach divided by the number of at-bats. Your earned run average, most of you know about it, but I'll remind you, is the average amount of runs you get or you give up per 9 innings. Now we'll get into the number 1 team in the league. I think they're pretty obviously contenders for the World Series, the New York Yankees. They're top 5 in basically every category, including home runs, OPS, on-base percentage. They're number 1 in slugging. They're 5th in steals, which is quite a jump because they were one of the 5 worst teams in stolen bases last year. They just win at different levels this year. They're number 1 in pitching and earned run average at 2.9. They're number 2. They're the second best team in terms of home runs given up, which means they give up the second fewest home runs when pitching. That's fantastic, especially playing in a smaller, but not as small as most people think, stadium in New York. And then they're the 4th best team in fielding percentage, which means you commit the fourth least errors. So this team does everything well. Like, there's nothing on paper they do bad. That's why they're 59-23 at this point, which is an absolute absurd number. 36 games above 500 halfway through the season. I mean, that means you're on pace to be 70-plus games over 500, which would be by far the best team in the history of Major League Baseball. Their run differential is plus 175, which means they've scored 175 more runs than they've given up. This is clearly the best team in the league at this point. This is clearly a contender, and they can still get better. Aaron Judge is playing at his peak. Giancarlo Stanton is nowhere close to peaking. He usually has a streak of about a month where he plays as one of the best, if not the best hitter in baseball. I think Joey Gallo can play a little bit better than he's played. He hasn't played great to this point, and maybe he won't. He hasn't played great at all in New York, and he may not. I think Aaron Hicks can play a little bit better, and I even think DJ LeMahieu can play a little bit better. Now, where this team has overachieved, in my opinion, is starting pitching. I don't expect Nestor Cortez to keep up what he's doing realistically. Maybe he can. I think Garrett Cole can get a little bit better, though, and I think Luis Severino and Jordan Montgomery are basically where you expect them to be at, which is like around the 2.8 to 3.5 earned run average range and giving you 5 to 7 quality good innings every time out. I think that's possible to keep up. So they are a contender. Next up, we have the Minnesota Twins at 47-38. They're 7th in home runs, 7th in on-base percentage, 5th in slugging, 6th in OPS. So again, top 7 in basically every category. And they're 8th in pitching, which kind of surprised me. Now, the issue with them is they're 26th in home runs given up, which is the 4th worst in the league. They give up a lot of home runs, and that's scary to me because they play in a stadium, which is a pretty big stadium. I've been there, and it's definitely not a hitter's a hitter-friendly stadium. It's more pitcher-friendly, and if you're giving up that many home runs and then also playing in a very weak division, the next best team in that division is the Cleveland Guardians at 40-40, which is 500. That's another reason why the Yankees is so impressive. They're playing in either the best or second best division in baseball, where I think the AL Central is either the worst or second worst division in baseball. And that's why I have the Minnesota Twins as a pretender. I don't see them competing for the World Series. I don't even see them getting to an ALCS. I just don't see it. First off, they struggle with the team I just talked about, the New York Yankees. They haven't beaten them, not in a series, but in a play. They haven't beaten them one time, a playoff game, in over a decade. So if you struggle that mightily playing against the Yankees and they're the best team, you're not making it to the World Series. And I just don't even see them making it to the ALCS. I think they're a pretender. I think they're a good but not great team. I think they're benefiting from a god-awful division. And it would not shock me if the White Sox, who are in third at this point, who were the favorites coming in to win this division, they're 39-41. If they play 70% plus baseball in the second half, catch up and overtake the Twins. So they're 100% a pretender to me. Next up, we have the Houston Astros. They are third in home runs, 10th in on-base percentage, 5th in OPS, 5th in slug percentage. Again, top 10 offense basically all around. They're third in earned run average as a pitching staff, and fourth in home runs given up, which means they give up the fourth least amount of home runs in Major League Baseball. They're 12th in fielding, which is a struggle. And there's actually indicators of teams that win the World Series. Since from 2000 to 2015, every team has been above average in WRC plus, which is weighted runs created plus. So basically 100 is average. For every point you're over that, that's a percentage point that you're better than average in creating runs. And the Astros are fantastic at that, as are most teams on the list. The Yankees are actually number one at 118, so they're 18 percentage points over average. The Astros are second at 116, and the Twins are good. They're fourth. They're at 112. But the Astros have been doing this forever. They have championship pedigree. They obviously lost Carlos Correa, who plays for the Twins now, who I do think adds something to that clubhouse, and that's why they played so well this year. And the Astros just picked up right where they left off, even without him. You still have Alex Bregman. You have Yordan Alvarez, who's probably second in AL MVP voting at this point. He's doing some things even better than Aaron Judge is at this point. And then you still have Alex Bregman, along with a good pitching staff with Justin Verlander coming off Tommy John surgery, the ageless wonder as he is, continues to pitch fantastic. Might be the AL Cy Young frontrunner behind Alex Manaea, which plays for the Blue Jays. So they're 100% a contender for me. They're going to be a contender as long as they have Jose Altuve, Justin Verlander, and Yordan Alvarez. If those three guys are healthy, they're a contender, and I'm buying them. They're 53-28, first place in the AL West by a decent margin. Not as much as the Yankees, obviously, who have a 14-game lead in the AL East, but the Astros have a 13-game lead in the AL West. So they basically locked up that division. I think both those teams are going to win their divisions. They probably won't win them by that margin, but they're going to win the divisions, and I 100% believe in the Astros. At this point, if you had to make me guess, I would believe we're going to have a rematch, and a much heated rematch, of the 2017 ALCS between the Houston Astros and the New York Yankees. Next up, and a team that cannot be counted out, making the World Series not that long ago, constantly getting in the playoffs. They're sitting in second place in the AL East right now, tied with the Boston Red Sox at 45-37. That would be the Tampa Bay Rays. Their offense is dreadful, though. They rank 21st in home runs, 24th in OPS, 20th in on-base percentage, 22nd in slug percentage. Now, their pitching has always been lights out. They've always had nasty arms down in that bullpen. Their starting pitching is a little bit better than normal. With a good signing, Corey Kluber, he's pitched pretty well for them. They're fourth in earned run average, but they are 16th in home runs given up. And that's always a problem for me. If you're average at giving up home runs, because that's instant offense. That's one swing of the bat and you're giving up runs. And that does not bode well for the postseason. And they're also 20th in fielding percentage. They've lost a lot of games this year because they've been terrible defensively. And that's very uncharacteristic for the Tampa Bay Rays. Usually the Tampa Bay Rays are the poster child of small payroll, which they still have, and then getting the best out of every player on the roster, squeezing the most juice they can out of every player, and then just doing the fundamentals well, getting on base, which they're not doing as well as they normally do, and then don't allow home runs and field your position very well. They're not doing either of those things right now. So if you're gonna make me choose between contender and pretender, and that is the game here, I'm gonna say pretender. I don't even know if they make the playoffs at this point. I think they do, but we'll see. And it's really hard, guys. If I had to choose, but if you're not making me choose, I'm not choosing either at this point. I need to see more from them. I think if they pick up their fielding in the second half and their pitching gets a little bit better, I think this team can make the World Series again. I really do, but we'll see. Next up, I should say, we'll move on to the National League, and we'll move over to the NL East. That consists of the Mets, the Braves, the Nationals, the Phillies, and the Marlins. The Mets, 51-31, fantastic record. They lead the Braves by 2.5 games in that division. They have a plus 64 run differential, which is good, but not great. They rank 19th in home runs, 9th in OPS, 2nd in on-base percentage, and 9th in slug percentage. So overall, and good but not great offense. 13th in team earned run average by the pitching staff, which I'm surprised by. 12th in home runs given up, which is basically average, and then 7th in fielding. This team really doesn't do anything well, but they don't do anything bad. It's actually kind of surprising to me they have as good a record as they do with these statistics, and they're sixth. And with all the injuries they've sustained, Max Scherzer's missed most of the time. He just came back, pitched fantastic versus Cincinnati Reds, but let's be honest, that's not hard to do at this point. And then Jacob deGrom is still hurt, coming back. He's always hurt, but when he is healthy, he's by far the best pitcher in baseball. It's not really a debate. I think they have 2 of the 5 best pitchers in baseball. And if those guys are healthy, I think they can make a run at the World Series. The problem is, will they be healthy? Max Scherzer's getting older, and Jacob deGrom is also getting older and has serious concerns with injury history. So I don't know. I think if those 2 guys are healthy, they will be playing in the NLCS. If one of them is healthy, they'll be competing for the NLCS. If neither of them are healthy, they will make the playoffs, but they'll be bounced very early on, most likely the first round in the wild card round, because I think the Braves catch them if that happens. Right now, they are number 6 in WRC plus, again, weighted runs created. They check in at 111, so they're 11 percentage points better than average, which is good. Again, their fielding percentage is below average, so fielding percentage is also high. Sorry about that. So that is the combination for possibly winning World Series. They just got to stay healthy, or at least semi-healthy. Next up, we have the second team in that division, which would be the Atlanta Braves, your World Series champions of last year. They lose Freddie Freeman. They add Matt Olson. Don't miss a beat. Ronald Acuna Jr. comes back. Remember, he was not healthy on that Braves championship team last year. That is a big piece, guys. He's a top 5 player in baseball, plays terrific defense, has gigantic power. Right now, they're 4th in home runs. They're number 2 in the NL, by the way, in that category, right behind the Dodgers. They're 14th in OPS, 15th in on-base percentage, 9th in slug percentage, 10th in earned run average, 16th in home runs given up, and 19th in field percentage. So they basically, at that point, you're saying they pitch okay and then rely on the long ball. Now, that can get you in trouble as a Yankees fan. I know that because that has basically been the formula for the Yankees the past half decade, is hit a lot of home runs, pitch pretty well, and you don't really win a World Series that way, to be honest with you. The fielding percentage must get better. The WRC plus right now is not very good compared to the other teams on this list, and I don't see this team competing for a World Series again this year. I just don't see it happening. I could be wrong. I take that back. They're 7th in WRC plus. There is a little bit of a drop off between the Mets and them. The Mets are at 111. The Braves are at 108. So could I see it happening? Yes. Do I think it will happen? No. It's hard to repeat. Baseball is the hardest sport to repeat, minus college basketball, but it's the hardest professional sport to repeat in, and I just don't see it happening this year. I don't think they have good enough pitching. They rely too much on their home run capabilities, and they're not great in the field. Next up, we have the Dodgers at 52-29, leading the best division in the NL for sure, the NL West, maybe the best division of baseball. It's either that or the AL East, which these Yankees reside in. They're second in home runs, second in OPS, first in on-base percentage, second in slugging, second in earned run average for pitching, 4th in home runs given up, and 8th in fielding percentage. They're all around great. They're top 10 in everything. The only thing you would say is hit more home runs. They play in a ballpark that isn't friendly for that, and most of that division, to be honest with you, isn't friendly for that. So that kind of makes sense. But this is an all-around great team, as they should be. It's the highest payroll in baseball. You have Freddie Freeman, you have Mookie Betts, you have Cody Bellinger, who has struggled but is still a good player. not build up to what he once was. He was overrated for a long time. I think people are seeing the holes in his game now. Still a good player, though. Trey Turner, Justin Turner, they're just loaded guys. They really are. You have Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw pitching, and Tony Gonsolin is having a fantastic season for them pitching out of nowhere. He's always been an starter. He's ratcheted up his game this year. They're an obvious contender. With the money they've spent, they're number 3 in WRC plus a 115, right behind the Astros and Yankees. They're there. They're going to compete for the World Series. At this point, if you had to make me guess, I mean, this isn't really stepping out on a limb, guys. I would bet the Yankees and Dodgers are playing in the World Series. That's the best team from both conferences, the NL and the AL. But it's baseball, and baseball is very hard to predict, so I would not bet on it. Especially injuries could happen, and that could derail seasons entirely. If Freddie Freeman or Mookie Betts is hurt for a period of time, a long period of time, like months, that could hurt them. And then obviously if Aaron Judge is hurt for the Yankees, that will definitely hurt them. Next up, we have the Brewers, and the Brewers are a good, solid team, but they play in a terrible division. They're not really great at anything. I think this is 100% a pretender. They kind of fall in the same category as the Twins. In these divisions where you're not playing great competition for a lot of your games, almost half of your games, actually half of your games to be honest with you, then you're fooling other teams is basically what you're doing at that point. We saw this with the Indians back, now the Guardians, to where unless you go on a historic run where you're winning 20-plus games like they did in a row back when they made the World Series back in 2016 and lost to the Cubs, then you're a pretender. You have to be historically good for me to believe in you if you're playing in a really bad division. And this Brewers team isn't historically good. They're 47-37. They lead that division, and they may not even end up winning that division. The Cardinals are 3 games behind them, and the Cardinals have winning pedigree. The Brewers have lately, but not really when you look back on their history. So they're 100% a pretender. I don't believe in them. And at this point, unless they get a lot better overall and just start dominating teams in their division, they're a pretender for me. So that's going to do it for the pretenders and contenders list. Next on, we're going to move to the NFL. We're going to move on to the NFC West. Over-unders for those 4 teams. And do I think the Rams will repeat in that division? Next after our commercial break.
Hey, 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 hey. Say, couldn't let a good pandemic go to waste, so I got in my bag what I got in my bag. Whole lot of big moves all in my bag. Whole lot of breakthroughs all in my bag. Couldn't let a good pandemic go to waste, so I got in my bag what I got in my bag. Whole lot of big moves all in my bag. Whole lot of breakthroughs all in my bag. Hit up all my brothers and we linked up. Everybody around need a business and a Brinks truck. I won't do it for you, I will show you I can help you. It's all in my actions, if you watching I can tell you. Every year is a year for my vision, won't feel listen. Keep my vision to myself so I won't hear no different. Put some power how I do it, I'm the hardest with this music. When you smart with your money, you can turn up and go stupid. Say, couldn't let a good pandemic go to waste, so I got in my bag what I got in my bag. Whole lot of big moves all in my bag. Whole lot of breakthroughs all in my bag. Couldn't let a good pandemic go to waste, so I got in my bag what I got in my bag. Whole lot of big moves all in my bag. Whole lot of breakthroughs all in my bag. Swap records I started that I got my own label. Only real raps on my notepad, no fables. Money on the table, that's a bag that I work for. I ain't going back to work for them cause I'm worth more. Took a lot of time and lost some investments. Money on the way, break it down, stretch it like Sanders. Militant Panthers, I don't do standards, thought it hard. Kept my vision to myself, can't knock me cause I tried. I'm a light in this city, I move right in this city. Ever since I've been in Vegas, I've been striking this city. I raise your vibes with these words, all them lies to the curb. I ain't cursing this verse, I make it move with my words. Do I got what it takes to run a label? Yes I do. Peep the growth and peep the development, I'm not settling. I've been working 7 long years plus, I think I'm better than all my opposition, not my competition. Couldn't let a good pandemic go to waste, so I got in my bag what I got in my bag. Whole lot of big moves all in my bag. Whole lot of breakthroughs all in my bag. Couldn't let a good pandemic go to waste, so I got in my bag what I got in my bag. Whole lot of big moves all in my bag. Whole lot of breakthroughs all in my bag. My bag? It's a lot in my bag. My bag? It's a lot in my bag.
Dust is everywhere. Sweet. Sweet. Dust is everywhere. Sweet.
That was Dust by Parquet Courts, and this is WLFC 88.3. We just got done talking a little bit of Major League Baseball. We're going to hop into the NFL, which is about a month away from starting their preseason, and we're going to talk about the NFC West. We've gone through the AFC and talked about over and unders for those teams. We're going to go to the NFC today, talk about the over and unders for their teams. First up, let's start with the Super Bowl champions. The defending Super Bowl champion, Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, getting Matthew Stafford last year helped out a lot. Ended up beating the Bengals in the Super Bowl. Sorry, Bengals fans. And this team, over or under, is set at 10.5 wins. Now, remember, in the NFL, the schedule is balanced. They try to get as close to 500 scheduling as possible. That means the Rams will be playing a first place schedule this year because they won the division last year at 12-5. And their schedule, opening the season as Super Bowl champions, you open at home, you played, in my opinion, the best team in football, the Buffalo Bills. I think that's one of the best opening matchups ever that I can remember. That's a hell of an opening matchup. It's going to be a fun game. They follow up with the Atlanta Falcons, and they play the NFC South division this year, which includes the Falcons, the Bucks, the Panthers, and the Saints. Now, that is a break because that division, other than the Buccaneers, is pretty terrible. And I would expect them to go 3-1 there. I think the division has gotten worse. I think they're going to win 4 games at minimum in the division. That's 7 wins right there out of 9 games. So you're asking this team out of the other 8 games to win 5. So they go 5-3. I think they do that. I think they go over the 10.5. And if you do that, unfortunately, to win money on this, you're going to have to bet a lot because if you bet $100, it's minus 118. So Vegas actually expects them to go over 10.5. They expect them to win 11 games, which would be one less than last year. But you also get a first place division schedule. You're the Super Bowl champs. You got a big target on your back. So a 1-game drop off, and they could still be a better team. I don't think they're going to be a better team because when you lose Robert Woods, you traded him, you lose Odell Beckham Jr. and Von Miller, you're just not going to be a better team. Obviously, they had Allen Robinson and Bobby Wagner, which will help out. And Allen Robinson, I think, is going to have a gigantic year. He's a very underrated wide receiver, especially in the Sean McVay scheme. So I expect them to go over the 10.5 wins. If you bet $100, you're not going to win. You're going to win 98. So actually, I take it back. You're going to win 82. So they expect them to go over this number, to be honest with you, and very clearly. Next up, we go to the Seattle Seahawks, who had probably the worst offseason of any team in this division. Actually, I take that back. It was the worst offseason of any team in this division. It was probably the worst offseason out of most NFC teams, if not all. They lose Russell Wilson. That's all you need to know. They lose a top 10 quarterback, which was already a dreadful team. They actually had some nice additions, though. They had Marquise Goodwin, who, when healthy, is a very good player, extends the field. With him, with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, that's a good receiving core. The problem is you have Drew Lock, who is abysmal, and I would know that as a Broncos fan, throwing on the ball. You go from one of the 10 best quarterbacks to one of the 7 worst in the NFL when it comes to starting, if not 5 worst, if not the worst, to be honest with you. And that's a big drop-off, and I expect this team to suffer for it. Right now, they're over-under set at 5.5 wins, and let me tell you, that might be generous. This team starts off with the Broncos, then they go to the 49ers, then they play the Falcons, the Lions, Saints, and the Cardinals. The first 6 weeks of the season, at best, you start 3-3, and if that happens, they'll go over. I don't expect them to win any of those games, to be honest with you, other than probably Detroit. And even then, I wouldn't bet on that. I'm going to go under here. It's plus money, actually, so they actually expect them to go over 5.5. They expect them to win 6 games, which means they'd be 6-11. I don't see that. I think they'll be 5-12. So I would bet that. And if you bet $100, you win $100, or you win $100, or win $200. Sorry, they're plus 100, which is crazy to me for going under. So I would definitely take the under here. Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals set at 9.5, and in fact, the Cardinals are set at 9.5. So are the 49ers. 49ers went to the NFC Championship game last year. The Cardinals lost to the Rams in the first round of the playoffs. They were 11-6 last year. And I expect, these two teams are going to be battling it out for second and third place. I expect the Rams to repeat as division winners. If not, I would probably take the 49ers. And right now, the 49ers would not be a bad bet, guys. 9.5. But you're betting on Trey Lance. Trey Lance drafted as a top 5 pick in 2 years ago in the NFL draft. Will he be good? Will he be better than Jimmy Garoppolo? Will he even be as good as Jimmy Garoppolo? Jimmy Garoppolo is an average starting quarterback in the league. I think he gets too much hate. This team has made 2 NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl with him at the helm. I know he hasn't been great in any of those playoff games, but he's gotten them there. They re-signed Deebo Samuel, which helps out. They really don't have any key losses other than K'Waun Williams, who was great in the slot last year at cornerback, and DJ Jones, both going to the Denver Broncos, which will help that defense. But 9.5 wins for the San Francisco 49ers with this division getting a little bit worse. I think the Cardinals got a little bit worse, and I think the Seattle Seahawks obviously got a lot worse. So I would actually take the over of 9.5 wins. I think they're going to win 10 or more games, just like they did last year. The under is actually juiced here, so they do believe that this team's going to go over. Vegas believes this team's going to go over 9.5 wins. I would take the over, and you wouldn't win much money, but I'd still take the over here for the San Francisco 49ers. Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals. Like I said, 9.5 for the Arizona Cardinals. I would take the under here. I just don't believe in this team. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be suspended for the first 6 games. Cliff Kingsbury is questionable at coach. You have Kyler Murray, who's already dealing with. He wants a contract extension. I don't know if he's worth that. I think this is a prove-it year for him. And I think this team either goes, to be honest with you, I think it's a boom or bust team. I think this team wins 11 or 12 games, and it goes smoothly, and they prove Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray prove their haters wrong, or they're going to be a bust, and they're going to win 7 or 8 games max. So I would take the under here. It's set at 9.5, so if they go 9-8, you win. I would take the under here. You're not going to win much money doing it, as the number is minus. The number is actually plus 145 for them to go over. So they expect them to go under this number just like I do. So you're not going to win much money. And if I'm predicting the standings here, I'm going the Rams, the 49ers, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. That is your NFC West preview. We'll do the other 3 divisions before the season starts, probably one a week. And it's been an honor talking to you guys. Enjoy your Thursday night. I probably won't be back tomorrow night, but thank you for listening to me as usual. This has been Gut Check Time with your host, Matthew Miller Search, and we will get you back to your indie music here on WLFC 88.3. We're going to start with American Cliche by Phineas.